So we are here to talk about her book, and it's not just about yoga in theory, but the life practice. So why don't we get a little taste of the now, starting the practice now?
Sure. So welcome everybody. I'm very happy to see all of you here today. So as Madhu just introduced the book Just Breathe is actually about the life practice of yoga and not so much about the physical practice. The physical practice being a very, very tiny aspect of this amazing ancient wisdom that I wish that all of us had much more access to. So actually what I've tried to do in the book is to just decode some of the most important yoga sutras as an inspiration for daily living. And to follow Madhu's suggestion, if all of us could just take a moment to sit upright, close our eyes for a moment, to bring our attention to the self. And I'm going to ask you to do a very, very short and simple practice. And one, of course, most of us find it really hard to close our eyes. So maybe just taking a moment to close our eyes. And I'm going to ask you to do something very, very simple. Just for the next few moments, can you feel your breath? Just take a moment to feel your inhalations and take a moment to feel your exhalations as if you're trying to befriend your breath. So as you inhale, I'm going to ask you to disconnect from all the chaos and noise around you. And then as you exhale, I'm going to ask you to consciously release all thoughts, all distractions, and just allow yourself to come into awareness to the present moment as you feel your breath. So very simple, long inhalations and exhalations. And now, very slowly bring your awareness back to the space that you're in and gently open your eyes.
Thank you, Radhika. Radhika's journey and her tryst with yoga, which also then became her life journey, and finally, how to invite each one of us to engage with this practice, which is simple yet potent. So I will just read a passage about something that resonates with all of us, I'm sure. A new awakening. We live in a physical world that is impermanent, uncertain, and challenging. All of our experiences fluctuate between pain and pleasure, light and darkness, health and sickness, birth and death. Despite this, we desperately seek happiness, permanence, and certainty in a chaotic world, where sustainable peace and happiness seem to be virtually impossible. Feeling like this at a point in her life, which was really stormy, Radhika encountered yoga, and she has the book is full of very simple metaphors that decode the Yoga Sutras and also what we think are very difficult yogic practices. So before I hand it over to Radhika, I'll just read what she has to say about the Yoga Sutras and the presence in her life. Our physical world represents a stormy ocean. We are ships on these choppy waters, trying to seek calm, to be able to anchor and stabilize. The ship must return to harbor, and so the Yoga Sutras help us to move inwards to the discovery of ourselves and our true nature, and to the only place where we can experience any calm. Radhika, would you like to elaborate on this?
So I did start my journey with yoga with B.K.S. Iyengar, and I was fortunate enough to be a student of the Iyengar School of Yoga. I had been practicing, trying many different schools, and then one day I went to an Iyengar yoga class and something magical happened. I felt a strange energy flow, awakeness, and I knew at that moment, and this was in the 90s, that I had actually come home. So to cut a long story short, really what the Iyengar School of Yoga did for me is BKS Iyengar's genius methodology, which was understanding that as you learned how to open your body and to get deeper into the physical body, the body then would become a gateway to the higher practice, meaning the life practice of yoga. So once I'd been practicing for quite a few years, and then suddenly this new idea dawned upon me. I thought I was a victim in my life and I was living in a very, very deep, dark space. And one day I realized, and this is actually the first lesson of the Yoga Sutras, is that every single one of us live in the physical environment that is characterized by 3 inherent properties or characteristics: uncertainty, impermanence, and volatility. So again, uncertainty, impermanence, and volatility. Yet, interestingly enough, if you look at all of us and how we're brought up, with certain parents or not. We go to school, we have this expectation that I'm going to get this amazing job, I'm going to get married, have children, and have this perfect idea of happiness. And then as all of us live, we start to realize, what is happiness? I got this, and then it made me unhappy. I tried for this happened, and this didn't happen. And then I realized that actually, then I started to contemplate the human journey. And I realized that all of us are living in this extremely chaotic environment. And while we as human beings so desperately seek peace, permanence, and certainty, the Yoga Sutras actually says, sorry, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen in the physical environment. And that you may experience peace, you may experience certainty and permanence, but it's going to be for pockets of time. Because the physical environment is changing all the time. And really, then we are confronted with a very important question. If I am surrounded by uncertainty, impermanence, and volatility in the physical environment, then how do I, as an individual, find the peace, certainty, and permanence that I am so seeking? And how do I actually find within myself to be happy and, more importantly, reach my full human potential despite the environment that I'm surrounded by?
So, Radhika, I'm sure all of us also find resonances with this, that, we all go through the same drama in life. We might think each of us has a unique battle, but eventually, between life and death, we all will have challenges, we will have impermanence, and we will have chaos. And there's a very interesting chapter in your book. I found that to be very powerful. It's called The Mind, Your Only Bondage. And I think this is something that all of us, at the end of the year, all of us will sign up for gym and yoga memberships, annual memberships, and go for 2 months, and then everything dwindles again. So this whole concept of now, when do we start?
So this actually brings me to the very first sutra, which is Atha Yoga Anushasanam, where Patanjali, who compiled the Yoga Sutras, said, now the discipline of yoga. Okay? So there's a lot of meaning to the now, and also to the fact that yoga is a discipline. So really what Patanjali is trying to tell us is that if you want to learn any skill, if you want to be a musician, an accountant, an Olympic athlete, a chef, no matter what it is, there's always process, discipline, and perseverance involved. You can't just wake up one morning, well, very few of us can wake up one morning and be an accountant, a businessman, anything. There's a reason we take time to study, focus. So when Patanjali talked about Atha Yoga Anushasanam, now the discipline of yoga, the first thing that he's telling you is that yoga is a skill. So when he referred to yoga, he was not talking about whether you could do a handstand or a headstand in the middle of the room. He was actually talking about yoga as a life practice. So in fact, the entire Yoga Sutras is about how to learn to live life skillfully, given the fact that we're surrounded by uncertainty, impermanence, and volatility. So he's telling you in the first sutra that yoga, like any other skill, must be learned. If you want to learn how to live life more skillfully, you must be willing to take the time out to understand how to do this. And when he talked about Atha now, he's telling you that science is the here and now. That every single one of us is living in this amazing university called life. So I don't need to go anywhere to learn this practice. I can actually, once I understand the theory behind the practice, every single moment of my life is the university of life. Yet all of us keep getting caught up in these mind states that I must run here, go and do this course here, get this certificate, etc., etc. But he's saying no. The practice of yoga happens right here, right now, in every moment in your life, irrespective of what you are doing. So then in the second sutra, Patanjali was very, very clever. The entire Yoga Sutras is 196 sutras, but he gave you the full practice in the first 3 sutras. In the second sutra, Patanjali says to you, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means the goal of yoga is to stop the fluctuating mind and your personality complex. So why the fluctuating mind? Because all of us live with a very incessant mind. And in fact, there is this great conversation of Maya and illusion in yoga. So actually, and there's a big, big misunderstanding behind what the illusion is. Right here, right now is not an illusion. But if you're actually sitting here, listening to me speak, but your mind is completely somewhere else, storytelling, thinking of other things, that's the illusion. So in fact, what Patanjali is trying to explain to us, that all of us are confronted by this energy sphere. It's actually called the conceptual mind, driven by the mind, the senses, and the ego. So as I'm doing something, no matter what I'm doing, drinking a cup of tea, talking to someone, listening to this conversation, my mind comes in like the tsunami and drags me away into an imaginary world. And why the chitta, the personality complex? Because all of us were born into different circumstances. According to our circumstances, we experience life in many different ways. According to our experiences, we formulated various belief systems. So when this imaginary world comes in and sweeps you away, then the mind starts storytelling, and then you start believing those stories, and that becomes the illusion, because you are no longer present right here, right now, but you're in this imaginary world looking at your life and living your life from there. So in fact, this journey of yoga is so simple. Really what he's telling you is that you need to stop allowing the tsunami to come in and sweep you into an imaginary world, but you need to learn how to be present. So of course, the next question, how do I learn how to be present? So this is why my book is entitled Just Breathe. Your breath is by far the most transformative tool, because your breath can only happen right here, right now. It cannot happen in the future, and it cannot happen in the past. So if I learn how to train my mind to focus on the breath, automatically I learn how to be present and aware. And then comes the most important sutra, where Patanjali tells you, if you succeed in stilling the mind, you in fact move away from the conceptual, chaotic mind, and you start to experience something called consciousness. And within each and every single one of us in this world lies this incredible reservoir of intelligence, creativity, and wisdom. So right now I think I'm alive, I'm intelligent, I'm creative. Your conceptual mind will allow you a certain amount of creativity and wisdom and intelligence. But he says true knowing, true intelligence, true creativity, and wisdom comes from when you start to experience consciousness. So to summarize the first 3 sutras, he's in fact telling you that yoga is the science of the here and now. I don't need to go anywhere. It's right in every single moment. Secondly, he's telling you that the goal of yoga is to stop that fluctuating mind Because the fluctuating mind is what creates the illusion called Maya. And once you learn how to do that, and the tool that he gives you is that I can package this as beautifully as possible. I can run from one place to another. But at the end of the day, your breath is with you all the time. My breath happens right here, right now. So instead of me attaching myself to things in the outside world which are constantly changing, when I learn how to attach myself to my breath, which is present in the here and now, something starts to transform inside of me. So to give you a very simple example, if I'm hit with a challenge, what happens? Of course, a challenge is difficult. Then typically, the tsunami comes in, sweeps me into another world and starts storytelling. This is really difficult. I can't do this. And it puts me into mind states that are driven by fear, negativity, etc. So this storytelling needs to stop. And what Patanjali says to you, if you can just come to the moment where you stop. So my mantra for myself is stop, breathe, think, act. So if I can in fact stop and just feel my breath, I stop the tsunami from sweeping me away and I start to experience life as it's happening right here, right now. And not only do I experience and see things for the way they are, but Patanjali told me that if I can stop moving away into that imaginary world, then I will start accessing my amazing reservoir of intelligence, creativity, and wisdom. And from this, true solutions and true thinking comes. And then no matter what or whom I'm faced with, I have the ability to deal with that situation. And in this journey, I start evolving into the best version of myself and actually experiencing my true human potential. Most of us, because we just live in a different, very superficial mind state, don't discover the beauty and the individuality that we really are.
So Radhika, I think we have 5 more minutes before we can take questions. So an important takeaway from there, it's one thing to practice, or as a dancer, I know, Riyaz, how important it is to do every day. But unless it's mindful, it has absolutely no effect. Radhika and I were just discussing, about our journeys and about our gurus, and she said that when she was talking to B.K. Iyengar, her guru, he said that, yoga is meant to be taught in a guru-shishya parampara technique. But today, where you learn so much through osmosis, but in today's times, one has to find one's own practice and also how to sustain it. And that's what led Radhika also on her journey. And I also wanted to ask you if you could share maybe your interaction with Guruji and also about the book itself that you've taken, about almost quarter of the book is about simple tools to invite this stillness, which becomes the important, very potent force that can propel a practice and then bring more peace in these chaotic times in our lives. And many tools and techniques, right?
So in terms of my relationship with Guruji B.K. Iyengar, right? In terms of my relationship with B.K. Iyengar, I understood his technique very clearly. I lived in Bombay, he lived in Pune, so I had access to him whenever I could. And basically, I was able to have a conversation in terms of how the awakening, the alertness, so I don't like to use the word awakening, really the alertness started to happen. And then really for me, the practice is very simple. How much time are each one of us willing to sit quietly, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to just train the mind to focus on the breath? Because at the end of the day, the sutras is just about skillful living and learning how to maneuver yourself in the chaos that surrounds us, but yet the most important message being reaching our individual potential. So if we're going to do this, really what the sutras is telling you, we put so much emphasis on things in the external world, and all of that's moving all the time. But inside of you, you can learn how to find the peace, the permanence and the steadiness that you're looking for. So really the simple practice, am I willing to take 2 minutes a day, but spend 2 minutes every single day, just sitting quietly with myself, feeling my breath. Because if I don't feel my breath, my mind will wander. So just feeling the inhalation and feeling the exhalation is an amazing beginning to the journey.
So I think they're running short of time. Maybe we can have one question from the audience.
Yeah, we do have room for one question. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand, and Madhu ma'am, you can pick who gets to ask the questions. Anyone with any questions, please raise your hand. Yes.
You can take my mic if you want.
Yeah, hi. I just came in, I just heard about 5 minutes. But what you told in the last 5 minutes is something like Vipassana. Is it, have you also done Vipassana, and what are your thoughts about it?
So Vipassana teaches, I've never done Vipassana. I practice on my own, but Vipassana teaches the same thing, that how do you train the mind to focus on the breath. So interestingly enough, a student the other day asked me, should I go for Vipassana? So I asked her, do you meditate for 15 minutes a day? She said, no. So I said, you want to meditate for 8 hours a day for 10 days, and then what? So you see, these are all the games of the ego. When I can develop a practice of 5 minutes a day, every single day without interruption, to me that's worth more than anything else. Because it's a discipline. Remember, Attha Yoga Anushasanam, now the practice of yoga, and him telling you that it is a discipline. Without discipline, I cannot become an Olympic athlete, I cannot become a musician, I cannot become a chef. So if I want to learn the art of skillful living, then I must have the ability to be disciplined and take the time out every single day to learn this amazing practice. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Radhika. And another very important takeaway from the book, and I think something that we can all sort of make it our own, is to respond and not react.
Yes. So stop, breathe, think, and act makes you a much more responsive versus the reactive person. My 4 words that I remind myself through every moment of my life, that I don't need to react, but if I allow myself to stop for a moment, engage with my breath, then that gives me the ability to respond versus being a reactive human being.
So we all have this strong tool with us to nurture. Radhika will be available at the Authors Lounge and at the Red Couch to sign your books. And if you have any questions, you can meet her after this, because we're running short of time. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.